There is a dire need of drawing a rigorous framework for trade that should be formulated independent of any political pressure. Communication links need to be improved, including allowing the roaming facility on mobile phones. Uninterrupted telecommunication links would facilitate trade between the two countries. Since there are seasonal and periodic shortages both in India and Pakistan for the same kind of agricultural items like food grains, sugar, onions, potatoes, etc., India and Pakistan can enter into special trading agreements with respect to these agricultural items. This will be mutually advantageous and benefit the people on either side by removing such shortages that result in higher prices. Then developing the physical infrastructure required to facilitate two-way trade. The quality of the road network is low with few regional linkages and rail networks between ports and markets are limited. There is only one border crossing at Atari Wagah and it lacks adequate customs and warehousing facilities. Pakistani ports need to be expanded to handle the expected increase in cargo. Finally, infrastructure in both countries needs to be significantly improved. Road needs to be expanded and upgraded and ports needs to be modernized. So the complete liberalization of trade between India and Pakistan will be a long and arduous process, but Pakistan's granting of MFN status to India will be a good start. Higher levels of trade will bring economic benefits to both the countries. Trade and economic relationships between India and Pakistan can be a medicine that will cement cracks in political relationship. So both the governments should work on easing visa regulations for businessmen for enhancing trade between the two countries. Thank you.
Well, friends, any suggestions, any comments? Thank you very much for that.
Between the two countries has increased in the recent years, still obstacles remain in the realization of trade potential. Being the dominant constituent of SAARC, both have a great potential for intra-regional trade. The objective behind the present paper is to demonstrate the prospects and challenges for increasing trade between the two nations. Since there are gains from the trade for both the countries, yet it is important to maintain the healthy economic relation between the two nations. The study is basically based on the secondary data collected from Ministry of Commerce and Industry, Government of India. The relation between India and its neighbor have been historically volatile, especially between India and Pakistan. Bilateral trade between India and Pakistan is as old as the two countries are, but the volume of trade between the two is as small relative to the size of their economies. During the periodic tensions over the period, there have been numerous positive developments between India and Pakistan, especially Lahore daily bus service and the peace process that was launched in February 2004. These developments provide an opportunity to both the countries to improve and enhance the bilateral trade. With the signing of SAFTA, that is South Asia Free Trade Agreement in 2004, and its coming into effect in 2006, the scope for multilateral trade has been expanded. The two governments and the private sectors are required to take initiatives to explore the potential of mutual economic and engagement through joint ventures. I would like to explain the economies of the two countries. India's economy is still rated as developing economy despite achieving a steady growth due to increase in rate of population. Several factors that contribute India's steady economic performances: active diplomacy, pragmatic and large neutral economic and political policies. On the other hand, Pakistan's economy not only traditional in agriculture but continues internal political instability. Several factors that come under its in the Pakistan economy, that is internal political instability, weak democratic system. Next, I would like to explain the trade between India and Pakistan. As per Ministry of Commerce and Industry, Pakistan's share in India's total export increased from 0.33% in 2001 and to 0.99% in 2010 and 11. On the other hand, imports from Pakistan as a percentage of total imports of India marginally declined. The former trade between India and Pakistan increased from $144 billion in 2001 to $2.7 billion in 2010 and 11. Further, the bilateral trade picked up in 2009 and 10. Pakistan's positive list for trade with India was further increased million worth of sugar to Pakistan in 2010 and 11. The sudden spike in sugar export was due to the shortage of production of sugar in Pakistan. India's major import from Pakistan explains that 65% of the total import from India to Pakistan, the bilateral trade between the two countries is heavily concentrated into few commodities. Despite the trade integration between the two countries, there are few problems between the two countries. First is the mistrust. There is mistrust plays a very important role in trust play a very important role in trade between the two countries. In the case of India and Pakistan, there is a mistrust that led to reach a further trade integration in the countries. Especially the Kashmir dispute, divergence in foreign policy goals, armed races, terrorism, marked the process of bilateral economic cooperation between India and Pakistan. Political and economic instability. On the other hand, Pakistan's economy suffers with political and economic instability, foreign indebtedness, huge energy bills. There is also a considerable influence of MNCs in Pakistan, and it is one of the major constraints in the development of the expanded India and Pakistan economic relation. And next is impact of foreign investors. Another problem that hinders trade between India and Pakistan, that is, India is heavily under impact of foreign investors. These factors highlight that the prospects for economic cooperation between the two countries lag due to the problems behind these countries. At last, I would like to conclude that India and Pakistan need to constantly engage with one another to understand each other's regulatory rhythm. India should continue to lower its non-tariff barrier as a part of its ongoing reform process. With new government in both the countries, there is once again a window of opportunity to improve economic ties. The success of confidence-building short-term measures and resulting growth in trade would give a major impetus to the creation of vested interests. Trade will not, of course, solve all the problems between the two countries, but it could be an important catalyst in lowering of tensions. And of lowering of tension between India and Pakistan, it's an inevitable benefit of strengthening economic ties. It is clearly that we can say that in case of India and Pakistan trade relation, it can be said that good fences do not make good neighbors.
Any suggestion, any comment from the other people? Thank you.
Between India and Pakistan. Trade cooperation between India and Pakistan started from the times of partition of Indian subcontinent in 1947. Initially, both countries were extremely dependent on each other for trade. Afterward, India and Pakistan took alternative ways to minimize interdependence on each other for trade. The result of these measurements was that India and Pakistan imported items from the global market at higher prices, which were available at low prices from each other. Economic gains from the bilateral trade could be an important way for resolving conflict between the two countries. Increase in bilateral trade needs political will and small investment from the both sides. Presence of a restrictive trade regime and large informal trade flows point out that there is an enormous unexploited trade potential between India and Pakistan. Objectives of the study: to analyze the composition of trade in agricultural commodities between India and Pakistan. Secondly, to examine the potential of agricultural trade between India and Pakistan. This paper uses Candy data taken from United Nations Commodity Trade Strategy database. Composition of Indian agricultural export to Pakistan and imports from Pakistan. SAFTA, South Asian Free Trade Area, had a positive effect on India-Pakistan trade, especially on trade of agricultural items. India's export to agricultural items to Pakistan started rising in the year 2005-06 and has improved significantly ever since. Exports have risen to a much upper level since the implementation of SAFTA. India's agricultural exports to Pakistan, cotton's share in India's export among the selected items was highest, as cotton of worth $488.26 million was exported to Pakistan by India, followed by the edible vegetables and certain roots and tubers, $147.11 million. Share of live trees, plants, bulbs, roots, cut flowers, etc. was observed lowest among the selected items, which was $0.13 million of dollars. Total export to Pakistan was $2,176.41 million in the selected period, and total of the selected items was $812.63 million. Share of selected items in the total export to Pakistan was 37.34%. India imported edible foods, nuts, peel of certis, melon of worth $73.97 million from Pakistan, whose share was highest among the selected items. India spent lowest amount on import of cereals and fish. India imported cereals of worth $0.02 million from Pakistan, which was lowest among the selected items. Total value imports from Pakistan amounted $402.75 million in the selected period, and total value of the above selected item was $181.42 million. Share of the selected items in the total import from Pakistan was 45.04%. India's agricultural trade potential. India exported live animals to the world amounting $12.50 million in 2013, and export to the Pakistan was however nil, whereas Pakistan imported $17.52 million worth of live animals from the world. So there is a trade potential of $12.50 million for India among the selected agricultural items. Cotton and oil seed have shown to have additional trade potential for export of $558.45 million and $435.26 million respectively. India has an additional export potential of $2,118.86 million for selected agricultural items. Pakistan's agriculture trade potential. Pakistan has an additional trade potential of $2,222.87 million for selected agricultural items, out of which $713.36 million can be attributed to cotton alone. Second highest additional export trade potential for Pakistan lay in sugar and sugar confectionery, which is $606.49 million, followed by edible fruit, nuts, peel of citrus fruit, melon, $360.26 million. Edible vegetables and certain roots and tubers have additional trade potential of $248.16 million. Oilseed and fish has trade potential of $93.96 million and $46.37 million respectively. Coffee, tea, maize and spices have trade potential of $75.85 million among the selected items. In the conclusion, we can say, although India and Pakistan have advantages of closeness, but trade between India and Pakistan was limited until late 1990s. Expansion of bilateral trade started in the new century, and it took upward trend after implementation of SAFTA in 2006. Agricultural trade has grown at faster rates than the non-agricultural trade. The process of trade normalize is anticipated to open huge trade opportunities for India and Pakistan. For this process, a number of measures are required to be taken by the both countries. There is a need for upgradation of infrastructure facilities on both sides, especially on Pakistan side.
Any suggestion, any comment on this paper? Thank you.
First of all, I would like to thank the director this session, we have 6 presentations. Mostly they were focusing on trade relations and one was on specializing on agriculture in the last one. The first paper was on this Indus Water Treaty and how it can be a source of resolving conflict between the two nations. If we see, to begin with from this Indus Water Treaty, no doubt India and Pakistan, they have mistrust and suspicion over a number of issues. But if we see, for example, from Kashmir dispute, mainly focusing on land earlier, now it is shifting towards water issues. And in this water treaty, it is emerging as it is emerging that there is need to revisit this very robust water governance institutions available across the world. But the robustness of this IWT is mainly seen from the fact that it survived 3 wars. And the first presenter, he was also mentioning of the terrorism and the terrorist groups like LET and Jaish-e-Mohammed and like that, that's how they can, you can say, encash this IWT for, we can say, water wars. He was using this word water wars. But the scope of water war between India and Pakistan, in my opinion, is not going to be there because the institution which is governing the water sharing between the two nations is very, very robust one. No doubt there are apprehension, conflicts, objections also over different issues, but they have been resolved over the period of time. But because of the changing conditions, for example, the impact of climate change and how it is impacting the Himalayan glaciers from where the rivers are coming, and how the melting of glaciers they affect their flow, seasonal variations and like that. And again, the need for energy in both the nations, India as well as Pakistan. So hydropower development need in specifically in the state of Jammu and Kashmir. So these issues are not actually incorporated or envisaged when the IWT was signed in 1960. But with the change scenario, there is need to visit this IWT so that the climate change related issues, melting glaciers and how they affect the water flow of the rivers. Those are the issues that need to be revisited and to be renegotiated between both the nations. If we see, for example, focusing on trade, the infrastructure facilities available on both sides of the border for trade, that is not a robust one. Again, peak in infrastructure facility. Even if we see the conditions of roads, even the institutions, the trade policies, they are also peak. External relations, for example, it is advocated that the legal visa regime should be there. There should be more of the communication network and like that. So, but both India and Pakistan, they can be a major trading partners, at least in the SAARC region, and most of the African, sub-Saharan African nations, they can also evolve those, you can say, trading blocks over the period of time, not only for having economic and trade gains, but also for solving the problem of poverty, unemployment, inequalities, food insecurity, and so on and so forth. And it was highlighted in the first session itself by the keynote speaker that energy cooperation, the energy trade is required. And the one of the paper here also, someone was mentioning about that how energy trade can, there is a scope for energy trade between the two nations. So for energy cooperation, water cooperation, which are, you can say, new areas which are emerging, aside the major, you can say, trade in goods and commodities. So here the role of civil society organizations, groups across both the side of the border, and then the role of think tanks like we here, the Center for Southwest Asia Study, they are conducting these types of you can say activities. So how they evolve over the period of time and what they suggest to see the ground realities, those are you can say important issues. Then the role of international agencies also. For example, if you see the border convention specifically with regard to Bagli Har dispute. So naturally the role of the World Bank was there, which has been you can say has been mitigating the conflict. I'm not going to emphasize that the international organizations should always be there to solve the dispute between India and Pakistan. But specifically with regard to, for example, finance, funding for infrastructure development for trade across both the sides, the infrastructure development for hydropower development, aside both, the data and information which is required for the better influence policies. So then the development of trade corridor between both the nations, like we are doing in Bangladesh and Myanmar also. That type of you can say this type of you can say infrastructure development needs a lot of funding, and for this and actually the role of international organizations like World Bank and Asian Development Banks, they are very important. And if these types of you can say facilities or infrastructure or the institutions or policies they are being framed, they will not only help improve trade and economic relations, but they will also help in improving the livelihoods of the poor people also through more poverty reduction, employment generation across both the sides of the this subcontinent. That's what is, I would like to add here. Thank you.
So thank you very much, Joseph Sudan, for his comments. Well, friends, finally, I'd like to suggest few things for the researchers, those who presented the research papers. That Professor Sharma also mentioned in the last session, that some paper writers have the weakness that they are not mentioning the proper source of data collection. And another important side is the methodological issues. So you must address the methodological issues, then your findings will be more meaningful. So with these comments, finally, I'd like to congratulate all the paper presenters who have written the papers, who have presented the papers, and my co-chairperson, report writer, for making this session a success, and above all the audience who has shown the patience to conduct this session peacefully. And once again, thank you very much to all of you.